Welcome to another member meeting of the Massachusetts Pirate Party. It is August 3rd, 2025. Um, my name is James O'Keefe. I'm captain of the Massachusetts Pirate Party. I live in Somerville, and I'm joined today by Steve Revelak, first officer and a resident of Arlington. How you doing, Steve?
Doing all right.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to try and shorten the meeting. This should go out on Monday by Monday, August 4th. For those of you who are watching it, uh, just as a reminder, you too, any pirate supporter can join these meetings, come online and participate. Um, so if that's something you want to do in helping chart our future, by all means, feel free to join. You can just go to masspirates.org and there'll be details on the sidebar. Um, we keep our schedule of meetings available on the wiki. Additionally, we have a calendar on our website now, so we'll be putting those up there, and we'll see how it goes. So, with that, let's get started. So, in terms of reports, Alec, our intern, has been dutifully going and following up with every municipality that has not fulfilled its, have not answered and provided the information in our public records requests of all of the voters in their municipality. So he's going through and doing that. And he's also starting to call through to um, potential candidates, organizers, and volunteers to see, to check in with them and see if they can help with the upcoming 2026 election season. For those of you who don't know, this upcoming election in 2026 are town elections. Indeed, every year generally are town elections. Those are held in the first half of the year. Each municipality has a different schedule and a different date for when their elections are and when their town meetings are, whether open or elected town meetings. Some towns, like Steve's Arlington, have elected town meetings. And by all means, that is a very easy thing to do. You generally need 10 signatures to get on the ballot. And people have been elected with like 50 or 60 votes. So, just knock on your neighbor's doors. So it's a very easy thing. And you too, if you have an elected town meeting, can participate in elected town meeting. If you have an open town meeting, if that's your town, then you can go and just participate in those as a pirate and go off and bring the pirate agenda there. So, namely, transparency, um, anti-privacy.
Not anti-privacy,
Not anti-privacy. Yeah,
anti-surveillance.
Anti-surveillance. Thank you for that,
Yes,
Steve.
data retention policies and
Policies.
all that sort of good stuff.
Right. And adequately providing for public services, amongst other things. And of course, not that these are town issues, but, promoting open data, uh, pushing back on copyright wherever we can, and patents and things like that. So, and a wide variety of issues. You can find that at masspirates.org. There's our issues page for all the issues that are on our platform. And then the second half of the year will be state and federal elections. We're trying to get people to run for, say, state representative or state senator. You only need 150 signatures to get on the ballot for state representative, 300 for state senator, and you have about 10 weeks to do it, starting in middle of February. So we're going to be doing trainings for candidates to get people to get their names on the ballot. That's the first step. Just simply getting on the ballot. Once you're on the ballot, you determine how much you want to campaign. If you just want to show up and talk with the media, if you want to participate in whatever debates are there, or if you want to go, knock on every single door, the choice is yours. But being on the ballot is the first step. And So we encourage folks to run because, generally 2/3 of the legislators have no opposition in the general election. So that's not democracy. So starting our meeting, so we've kind of quickly done reports. No updates on decisions and endorsements, but we've got a bill that was suggested by Pirate Ricky, and I wanted to make sure that we went and looked at that and decided whether we wanted to endorse it. So next on the agenda is Pirate News. For those of you who don't know, a new Pirate News just went out today, and so Steve, you had suggested the idea of, uh, I had suggested a meeting next Sunday, and then we could take a break, uh, and then possibly what if we don't get enough people, we could just do a Pirate News, or we could also do a Pirate News and a meeting or something. What do you think?
Let's see. If we have enough people, if we have a quorum, we can do a meeting. Otherwise, if it's a small turnout, we can do Pirate News.
Sounds good. Either way, it'll be recorded and put up for folks. So, in terms of the Commonwealth, thank you, Steve. So, in terms of the Commonwealth bills, one was suggested as this an act protecting personal security. So, go and we look at that bill. So section 13E, the court shall, before decreeing a change of name. So this is about people changing their names. Request a report from the Commissioner of Probation on the person filing the petition, and upon entry of a decree, the name as established thereby shall be the legal name of the petitioner, and the registrar may issue a certificate under the seal of the court of the name established. No decree shall be entered, however, until there has been filed in the court a copy of the birth record of the person whose name is sought to be changed, and in case such person's name has previously been changed by decree of court or at a marriage pursuant to section 1D of chapter 46, either a copy of the record of such person's birth amended to conform to the previous decree changing the person's name, a copy of such decree, or a copy of the record of marriage, provided that the filing of such copy may be dispensed with if the judge is satisfied that it cannot be obtained. B. The court shall, at the request of the person whose name is sought to be changed, order that petition for name change. All pleadings, papers, or documents filed in connection therewith, docket entries in the permanent docket, and record book shall not be available for inspection if the court finds that an open record of the person's name change would jeopardize such person's safety based on the totality of the circumstances. Upon such a filing, the petitions, reports, pleadings, papers, documents, and permanent docket and record book shall be segregated. A separate permanent docket book shall be provided for all such segregated entries. This section shall apply to the index of the court of all such segregated entries, a separate index of which shall be provided. For the purposes of this section, totality of circumstances shall include, but not be limited to, a consideration of the risk of violence or discrimination against the person, including the person's gender nonconformity or status as transgender or as a survivor of domestic violence. The court shall not deny such requests to segregate solely on the basis that the person lacks specific instances of or a personal history of threats to their personal safety. So my understanding from this is previously when these were approved, they would have to be put into the newspaper, which, sadly are not doing well. And so that is something that I believe was removed.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, this sounds like, something that would make it a little easier for people who've had like really bad, caustic, violent domestic relationships to kind of start over again and not be, tracked down by or stalked by their ex. So I'm in support of that.
I agree. I mean, I also think that it's good that it's at a person's gender nonconformity and status as
Mm-hmm.
transgender, especially since with all the stuff that the Trump administration, the federal government under his administration,
Yep.
is trying to do to get rid of trans people, which is something we oppose. So, do you have any objection? Shall we support this?
I would vote in favor of supporting.
And as would I. So moved. So unfortunately, well, that's interesting. Maybe I was looking at the Senate bill. Hold on. I thought the Senate bill had a hearing. All right, so the Senate bill had a hearing on 7/29/2025, which unfortunately we missed, but you can still provide testimony. So, and unless you have the opportunity, I mean, I can see if there's someone who can write up testimony to mail to the judiciary. The House bill, is that also judiciary? Oh, that's interesting. They didn't consider them together. Okay. But namely being in support of both of these bills. Sound like a plan?
Yep.
All right. All right. So with that, so an update on the decrim sex work bills. Sex work bills. There was concern from folks I talked with um, about whether there were good ideas. They don't go perhaps far enough, but in order to get these bills passed, indeed, generally the way most bills are passed is if there's enough agitation by voters um, that legislators see it. And so there's a concern that there needs to be a concerted effort to get these bills before legislators and make sure that they feel pressure in getting them done. I mean, indeed, we have a whole video series from Alex Matthews, or a video, I should say, from Alex Matthews of Restore the Fourth about getting things through the legislature, which is sadly oftentimes dependent on whether the president of the Senate or the Speaker of the House supports it. So, do we want to look over these bills? I mean, yeah, geez, an act to study the decriminalization of sex work. I mean, yes, sure. I don't know. What do you think? Do you want to look at these?
Let's
Or
save
look at
them
others?
for the let's save them for the next meeting.
Okay. Any so we've gone through this one. Do you want to look at promote transparency of facial recognition of driver's license plate photos?
All right.
All right, let's go look. I think Joe suggested this one. And this has not been heard. Oh, it's very short. Section 1, Chapter 90 of the General Laws, appearing in the 2022 official edition. Did they not yet publish a 2024 official edition? Is hereby amended by adding the following sections. Section 8N, the Registrar of Motor Vehicles shall post notices in conspicuous locations at all department licensing offices, make written information available to all applicants at department licensing offices, and provide information on the department website regarding Commonwealth investigative or law enforcement officer searches of driver's license and ID photos through targeted face recognition. The notice's written information and online information must address how officers use and access targeted face recognition in criminal investigations. First off, we shouldn't be using facial recognition. That's me. Yeah. What do you think, Steve?
Um, well, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like it would prevent the use of facial recognition against driver's licenses, but the fact that, um, it at least has to be written, the use has to, any use has to be written out and documented, I think well, it is a small first step, and I would be in favor of seeing the legislature take it.
But I mean, it says they'll post notices. I mean, does this actually require? Like, I mean, it just feels like, yeah, we're going to tell people that we can do this. I mean, am I missing something here?
That is my reading. But apparently, this, being a new bill, you kind of get the impression that, that minimal bit of transparency is not happening today.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
This
So,
is
yeah.
this is the bill. This kind of bill falls into the category of making things suck less. And unfortunately, sometimes that is the best that you can do.
God, that's why we need pirates in office. Anyways, okay, so you're okay with supporting this milk toast notification requirement?
Yes.
All right, I am as well. It's certainly, yeah. Oh, God. All right. Okay, great. So moved. So that's the second one. Well, that was quick. Should we go for a third? An act to implement recommendations of the Special Commission of Facial Recognition Technology.
Sure. Which one is that?
That's H 1946 and S 1053. Let's just see if there's been a hearing. Hearing is scheduled to set. So the hearing has passed. Is the Senate one had a hearing?
So H19.
Both were heard on the 15th. So, yeah, if we're going to do it, we should get the testimony in. It is a much longer bill.
Yeah, and just looking at the agenda for the hearing, both the Senate and the House version were heard, which seems to be sort of a common thing for hearings. I guess the State House doesn't always refer to them as joint committees, but this agenda does have a mix of House and Senate bills, and yeah.
Right. All right. So H 1946, Chapter 6 of the General Laws is amended by Chapter 253 of the Acts of 2020. Is here. Sorry, I'm laughing. It's like the previous bill was like, yeah, the laws of 2022, and this is like the laws of 2020. Like, isn't anybody up to date?
So the Acts of
GitHub on
20.
this.
So the Acts of 2020, if I remember correctly, were sort of an economic development act, which there was a big pile of stuff that got passed in that.
Thank you for that. All right, so it's hereby amended by striking section 220 and inserting in place thereof the following section. Section 220A. As used in this section, the following word shall, unless context clearly requires otherwise, have the following meanings. Biometric surveillance technology, any computer software that performs facial recognition or other remote biometric recognition. Facial recognition, automated or semi-automated process that assists in identifying or verifying an individual or analyzing or capturing information about an individual based on the physical characteristics of that individual's face, head, or body, and that uses characteristics of an individual's face, head, or body, not fingerprint, to derive information about the association, I guess, covered body, activities or location of an individual, provided, however, that facial recognition shall not include the use of search terms to sort images in a database. I mean, facial recognition search, the use of facial recognition to analyze an image. Law enforcement agency, as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 6E. Law enforcement officer or officer, as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 6E.
So skip down to section, the definitions are the definitions, and they're important, but the interesting stuff starts in Section B.
Fair enough. B, absent express authorization in a general or special law to the contrary, it shall be unlawful for a law enforcement agency or officer to acquire, possess, access, use, assist with the use of, or provide resources for the development or use of any biometric surveillance technology, or to enter into a contract with or make a request to a third party, including a federal agency, for the purpose of acquiring, possessing, accessing, and using information derived from a biometric surveillance technology. Except in a judicial proceeding alleging a violation of this section, no information obtained in violation of this section shall be admissible in any criminal, civil, administrative, or other proceeding.
That's good.
Yeah, that is good,
right?
Yeah.
All right, let's go to C.
The registrar of motor vehicles may require, possess, or use facial recognition technology to verify an individual's identity when issuing licenses, permits, or other documents pursuant to Chapter 90, provided, however, that the registrar shall not allow any other entity to access or otherwise use its facial recognition technology except in accordance with subsection D. D. The Department of State Police may perform a facial recognition search or request the Federal Bureau of Investigation to perform a search for the following purposes. I hate these little things. 1. To execute a warrant duty authorized by a judge based on probable cause that an unidentified or unconfirmed individual in an image has committed a felony. 2. Upon reasonable belief that an emergency involving immediate danger of death or serious physical injury to any individual or group of people requires the performance of a facial recognition search without delay. 3. To identify a deceased person. Or 4. On behalf of another law enforcement agency or federal agency, provided that such agency obtained a warrant pursuant to Clause 1 or documented in writing the reason for a search requested under Clauses 2 or 3. One facial recognition operations group within the department shall be charged with receiving and evaluating law enforcement requests for facial recognition searches, performing facial recognition searches, reporting results, and recording relevant data. The department shall only use existing facial recognition technology used by the Registrar of Motor Vehicles or Federal Bureau of Investigations or facial recognition technology approved by the Executive Office of Technology Services and Security, which may only be approved following a public hearing on the proposed software. Wow, no vote. Okay. Any search performed or search request made to the Federal Bureau of Investigation under this section shall be documented in writing. So basically, it's adding a warrant requirement for limited circumstances. Well, it's adding the states can use it, provided they've got a judge saying they can use it, or there's an emergency, or it's a dead person.
Yep. This is not bad. It's not bad.
Yeah. For any emergency facial recognition search performed or requested under subsection D2, the law enforcement agency shall immediately document the factual basis for its belief that an emergency requires the performance of such a search without delay, and any emergency facial recognition search shall be narrowly tailored to address the emergency. Not later than 48 hours after law enforcement agency obtains the access to the results of a facial recognition search, the agency shall file with the Superior Court in the relevant jurisdiction a signed sworn statement made by a supervisory official of a rank designated by the head of the agency setting forth grounds for the emergency search. I like paper trails.
Yeah, I mean it's
Yeah.
it's you're so D2 is kind of the like the exigent circumstances provision, but you know section E kind of put some process around it, and like you've got to document it, and then you've got to show that this was actually legitimate. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah. F. All individuals charged with a crime who are identified using a facial recognition search under this subsection shall be provided notice that they were subject to such a search pursuant to Rule 14 of the Rules of Criminal Procedure. Law enforcement agencies and district attorneys must make readily available to defendants and their attorneys in criminal prosecutions all records and information pertaining to any facial recognition searches performed or requested during the course of the investigation of the crime or offense that is the subject of the criminal prosecution. This information shall include, but not be limited to, the results of the facial recognition search, including other possible matches identified by the search. Ooh, that's nice. As well as records regarding the particular program or algorithm used to conduct the facial recognition search, the accuracy rate of the facial recognition system, nice, any audit testing of the facial recognition system, the identity of the individuals who conducted the facial recognition search, training provided to law enforcement officials involved in conducting facial recognition searches, and the process by which the defendant was selected as the most likely match. G.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's
no,
good.
that's
Yeah,
pretty
yeah, yeah.
good, actually. Yeah. Transparency. We need it. G. The department shall document as a public record each facial recognition search request and each facial recognition search performed pursuant to this section and report this information quarterly to the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. Reported information shall include the date and time of the search or request, the system used for the search, the specific criminal offense or offenses under investigation, the number of matched individuals returned, if any, the name and position of the requesting individual and employing law enforcement agency. Wait, I thought the requesting individual and the law enforcement agency is the staties, since everyone else
Well, it sounds
can't
like
do it.
there's. It sounds like the FBI can in certain circumstances. This was one D4. The FBI can ask for a facial recognition search, providing that they've gotten a judge to sign off on a warrant.
Well, the staties can, or they can talk to the FBI and have them do it. Okay, all right, I see what you mean. Okay. Copy of the warrant, or if no warrant exists, a copy of the written emergency request and the data detailing the individual characteristics including the facial recognition search or request, including the presumed race and gender of the person in the probe images as assessed by the officer conducting the search. H. Annually, not later than March 31st, the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security shall publish on its website the following data for the previous calendar year. I. The total number of facial recognition searches performed by the Department of State Police, disaggregated by law enforcement agency or federal agency on whose behalf the search was performed. The total number of facial recognition searches performed by the Federal Bureau of Investigation on behalf of law enforcement agencies, disaggregated by law enforcement agency on whose behalf the search was performed. For each category of data and each law enforcement agency, the published information shall include the number of searches performed pursuant to a warrant by alleged offense, the number of searches performed pursuant to an emergency, and the race and gender of the subjects of the searches as assessed by the officer conducting the search.
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
far so good.
yeah. Each non-law enforcement public agency shall document as a public record each facial recognition search requested and each facial recognition search performed by its public officials and report this information quarterly to the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security. Reported information shall include the date and time of the search or request, the name and position of the requesting individual, the reason for the search or request, the name, position, employer of the individual who conducted the search, the system used for the search, the number of matched individuals returned, if any, and data detailing the individual characteristics included in the facial recognition search or request, including the presumed race and gender of the person in the probe images, as assessed by the individual conducting the search. J. Annually, not later than March 31st, the Executive Office of Public Safety and Security shall publish on its website the following data of the previous calendar year. I. The total number of facial recognition searches performed by or at the request of non-law enforcement public agencies, disaggregated by the public safety agency on whose behalf the search was performed. For each public agency, the published information shall include the race and gender of the subjects of searches as assessed by the individual conducting the search. K. Notwithstanding subsection B, it shall be unlawful for a law enforcement agency or I guess that's agency or officer?
I think that's a typo, yeah.
Yeah, to use a biometric surveillance system to infer a person's emotions or affect. It shall also be unlawful for a law enforcement agency or officer to use a biometric surveillance system to analyze moving images or video data, whether in real time or as applied to archived information, provided, however, that facial recognition may be used on a still image taken from moving images or video data if authorized pursuant to subsection D. L. Notwithstanding subsection B, a law enforcement agency or officer may acquire and possess personal electronic devices such as a cell phone or tablet that utilize facial recognition technology for the sole purpose of user authentication. Acquire, possess, and use automated video or image redaction software, provided that such software does not have the capability of performing facial recognition or other remote biometric recognition. And receive evidence related to the investigation of a crime derived from a biometric surveillance technology, provided the use of a biometric surveillance technology was not knowingly solicited by a law enforcement agency or officer in violation of subsection B. I just kind of look at this one over again. So they can use their own personal electronic devices that do facial recognition. Yes?
So I read item 1 is that you could use facial recognition technology for the sole purposes of user authentication. So that's like unlocking your phone with your face.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah. So B is you could use video redaction software. You blur something out, provided that redaction software doesn't have facial recognition or biometric capabilities. Okay.
Okay.
And 3, receive evidence. So a law enforcement agency may receive evidence related to the investigation of a crime derived from a biometric surveillance technology, provided that the use of a biometric surveillance technology was not knowingly solicited by a law enforcement agency or officer in violation of subsection B.
So this is don't ask, do tell.
Well, I read it as you can receive the result of a facial recognition search as long
as you didn't ask for it.
Was not knowingly solicited. As long if you get some biometric stuff and you believe that it was not didn't come from a violation of subsection B, you can accept it. That's how I read it.
Hmm. Yeah, but does that mean it has to be given to the defendant?
Well, there are other parts of, I could see like police in city A working with police in city B, and they provide evidence on a case. And, city B can get the evidence, but if it includes biometric stuff, the biometric stuff had to be taken in accordance with subsection B. And skipping up to B, this is. Uh, bu- 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 Okay, so it's, in other words, if the stuff is legit, you can pass it on, and the receiving agency can accept it. But if the stuff was not done legit, then the receiving agency can't accept it. That's I think that's what it's saying.
Okay.
Yeah, this looks good. I mean, the title of the bill is an act to implement the recommendations of the Special Commission on Facial Recognition Technology. So it sounds like there was a commission. They looked at some stuff. They looked at the use of this stuff. They came up with some recommendations, and this is a bill that would attempt to implement them. So far, so I'm in favor of it. Looks good to me.
I mean, I would prefer to ban facial recognition technology completely. But how, how about if we say we don't want facial recognition technology, we think it's biased, and should not be used. However, we appreciate the text and that we appreciate the limitations and reporting requirements that this bill puts forward and support those aspects of it.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the bill is trying to get around. I agree with you that facial recognition and biometric recognition software is biased. It tends to do better on white people than people who are non-white. Um, the reporting requirements do include things like the number of matches. So if 200 people came back, you have to, the results of your search have to include that. And there is a requirement to include the racial identity. So if you can, there's, I think there's a recognition of, yeah, the stuff is not completely accurate all the time, and in some cases can be wildly inaccurate. And I think the reporting thing is, kind of tries to address that. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, though.
Yeah.
If we could support the requirements for warrant, and documentation and reporting. So I think that's fair.
And limitation to just the state police. So everything has to go through the state police, in essence.
Yeah, there was a section that talked about non-law enforcement requesting agencies, and given the provision that this could be used to identify a deceased person, I'm kind of picturing that as like maybe a coroner's office, but I'm not
Sure.
completely sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then I guess we agree on what that should be. So I will put something together and send it out, and then any comments of cleaning up, and then I'll submit it as testimony. Then, so with that, we're nearly at the hour.
That was a
Shall
long
we?
bill. Yeah, I
Yeah, it
think
was a long ago.
we got through three tonight, so I think that's a that's an accomplishment.
That is an accomplishment. Um, all right then. So we'll meet again at 8 p.m. Next Sunday, August 10th. And It'll either be a pirate news, or it'll be a meeting, or it'll be a meeting and pirate news. I
So
guess.
I do want to do a little in the spirit of giving credit where credit is due.
Mhm.
The I think I want to commend the folks who wrote this for being a lot clearer than some of the Mass General laws. I don't think there was a 600-word sentence in any of those bills. So this is good.
As the person who had to read it, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Mhm,
It was better written than a lot of other ones.
mhm.
And so just one other thing. In So if we meet the 10th, um, could we then meet 3 weeks later on the 31st?
Works for me.
Okay, great. All right, so again, motion to adjourn. Did you say, Lauren? I don't know. What
Oh
do you?
yeah, motion to adjourn.
All right, I second. And there being two of us, there's only two, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Steve. Thanks for folks who got this far listening to our meeting. If you have bills you want to see us take a position on, if you think we should take positions on particular bills, if you want to write testimony for us to take a position on, for us to use in taking positions on bills, by all means, contact us at masspirates.org, and we're happy to work with you. So, and one other thing, uh, uh, we'll I'll probably post about this later in the week, but there's sorry. Uh, so I spoke with John in Chicopee, who has gone and taken a lot of, I believe it's taken a whole bunch of uh, sur- town data with the locations of surveillance, and he's put it on his own GitHub page, and has it on a map. And so it was great that he reached out to us. And he's a freelance journalist in Chicopee. And so, John, we look forward to working with you. I've already emailed you, but we look forward to working with you to get your data into OpenStreetMap for cctv.masspirates.org, and to see how we can work together in the future. So thanks for reaching out. And so with that, hope you all have a wonderful week. We will hopefully talk with you next week. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, listeners. Bye.